Just one continuation from the last video is that if you do want to drop the class, what you need to do is log into the school's website and do it through the proper system there. Now, if you can't figure that out, you would probably start by going to the admissions and records page, and they probably have a write-up on it there. If not, call admissions and records. But you'll need your credentials. It's basically the opposite of signing up for a class. Again, I don't do that. That's something that you do through the college's website. Okay, so moving on to grades. Your grades are made up of three different items. You have the projects, then you have preparations, which include getting ready for the projects, possibly assigned readings, writings, quizzes, and the big thing that gets you aligned with the projects are what I call process checks. And that's basically, I go around, look at where you are on the project. In the announcements section of your learning management system, I will tell you where I want you to be for the next class, and then you'll get a grade based on that, which I'll talk more about in a second. Projects, it'll be pretty obvious when you're working on a project. Those will be the big things, the important things that are due for the semester. And then, depending on what type of class you're in, the other 20% of your grade will either be a final project or a combination of a midterm and a final. And obviously you're looking at the syllabus, your syllabus right now, so you'll know which that is. The grades are updated regularly and posted for your private viewing on your learning management system, and which could be Titanium. It is your responsibility to monitor the grades every week and let me know of any errors right away. And one of the important reasons for that is some things there are no paper trails. If I give you back a grade sheet for a project and you got a 36 out of 40, but I accidentally marked down a 30, then obviously you can show me the grade sheet and we can fix that. But if it's a process check where I just walk around, give you a grade, and then 2 weeks goes by and you say, hey, I was here on such and such date, but I didn't get a grade, and I look back on the grade sheet and it doesn't look, or I look back on the roll, doesn't look like you were there, then we get into that situation where it's, iffy. So make sure you check it and let me know of any mistakes right away. One thing that I didn't like when I was taking college classes is being in a class and being, for example, halfway through and having no idea what my grade was. So I will not do that to you. I am pretty good about getting your work graded and input into the learning management system in a timely manner. It's rare that you would complete an assignment and not have it returned to you with a grade and that grade recorded in the learning management system within 2 weeks. Often much quicker. Let's talk about the standard and keep in mind what grades actually mean. A C means average. A C is not supposed to mean bad. It's supposed to mean you did average on that assignment. Therefore, if you want a B, your work, your efforts should be above average, and for an A, superior. So, for example, let's say that we completed a project and we put that project up on the wall for everyone to look at. And you're being honest with yourself and you look and you say, hey, mine's right in the middle. It's not among those that are like, wow, really the best, but it's definitely not the worst ones. That is supposed to be average. People don't like to be told they're average. So in truth, if you meet all the expectations, everything on the grade sheet, and it's not truly below average, you'll probably break into the B range. However, if I'm marking things off on the grade sheet and aesthetically there are some things that are wrong, then you could get a C or even a D, which again, it only really says that it's below average. However, you're never going to get an A from me on a project unless it really is superior, meaning that you nailed everything on the grade sheet and it's up in the top of the top student work. You might think, based on what you just heard, that I'm a very strict grader, and you might be worried that this class could bring your GPA down, especially if it's not in your major, for example. Although it is true that I'm strict on the project grades and follow a real world approach to the grades, meaning that only a perfect grade for a perfect project, which is very rare, or a high B for a project that says above average, and lower grades accordingly. But on the preparation side, that's when you can make things up and still end up with the good grade that you deserve in the class. So I don't think I've ever had like what I consider a true A student who didn't get an A in my class, even if they weren't a great designer, because they did everything that they were supposed to. And even if they averaged, like say B-ish in this area, they did well here and probably here, enough to push it into the A range. Now, I can't guarantee you that, but that's typically how things work out. But now here on the preparation is where you have a chance to kick your grade up. If I tell you, and this is just an example, to come in next week with 5 simple drawings to show me 5 different directions for your next project, and you do the absolute minimum, just come in with 5, rather than me say, oh, that's a weak effort, you only did the exact minimum, I'm going to give you a C. No. If you do what I ask you on the preparations, I give you a low A grade, which is 36 out of 40. And we'll talk more about how to translate that into grades later. Now, if you do more, what you really should, if you want to make an awesome portfolio, you should be doing a lot of process. So do more than I ask, legitimately more. Don't just, slop something together. But if it looks like it's a legitimate effort more, then you might get a 37 or a 38 out of 40, or even a 40 out of 40 if the effort is outstanding. And since 90%, a low A, is all you need to get an A, then any extra that you're putting in the bank, so to speak, will go to push your grade upwards. So in short, doing extra work brings up your preparation grade, which can bring up your entire grade. Projects are graded very real. And speaking of real, if you get an A on a project, like for example a 37 out of 40, please don't ask me why you lost 3 points. That's not the way I grade on projects. Instead, think, wow, I got a mark that says superior. I'm doing good. The learning management system is going to calculate your grades for you. So you don't have to pay attention to this math that I'm going to go over here. And I'll make sure that I leave these pages here one at a time. So if you want to read through these slower, you'll have an opportunity to hit pause if you're going over this on your own later and really be able to take all this in. I'm just going to go over it quickly right now. But the learning management system is great at sorting out the grades. So if you've had 3 projects so far, 7 preparations, and no final project or midterm final exam, depending on your situation, you don't have to look at the learning management system and say, oh, that's why my grade is so low, because we haven't had the final yet. No, it will calculate the grade, show you that based on, if I had to give you a grade right now without a final or a final project, that's what your grade would be. So if you are expecting to get a B or better in the class and your grade shows you in the C range, then you have reason to be concerned. And if it's not because of an error, then you need to change your work habits and bring your grade up into that B range. When I return a project to you with a grade, that grade, to make it easy, if you don't trust the learning management system or you just want to double check, I will grade it based out of 40 points so that you can add this column to this column to this column. So same thing, preparations will be graded out of 40 points. If you have a final project, that will be graded out of 20 points. If you have a midterm and a final, the midterm will be graded out of 10 points, the final out of 10 points, and then you can follow the math that is explained here to manually calculate your grade. So I'll just run through this real quick so that you can see an example here of what's actually going on in the learning management system. So for example, let's say that you have 3 projects done so far. You got a 35, a 32, and a 36. Those get added up, divided by 3, and then you have the average of those 3 projects. Let's say in this example, 6 preparation grades so far, and you received a 36, a 30, a 0, a 36, a 38, a 40, total of 180 points divided by 6 equals 30. So those two numbers make up the first 80% of your grade, and then depending on if you have a midterm or a final. So let's look at, for a student that has a final project, using the same numbers as before, which gave us an average of 33.3 and 30. And let's say that they think they're going to get 90% on the final project, which 90% of 20 points comes out to 18. So you take that number plus the 18 for the final, and you see the number comes out to 81.3, which is a low B grade. So if it's early in the class and you're just speculating based on that and you want an A, you know you really have to turn things around, because if you keep at this average, and even if you get a 20 out of 20 on the final project, that only adds 2 more points. That still keeps you in the low B range. And then here's the same example, but instead of a final project, it is a midterm and a final. So the example here says the midterm was already taken, you received a 9, haven't had the final yet, but you're hoping for a 9, so you add those 18 points in there, and you can see you're coming up to a low B again, and same message, got to increase this stuff. So that's a great thing about having your grades visible to you all the time in Canvas, is that you know where you're at and you know if you need to increase your performance. Now, one big word of advice for you is avoid zeros. Sometimes students just get it in their head that if they're falling behind on an assignment, they're just going to cut that one out and do better on the next one. And here's some math to prove that that's a bad thing to do. So let's say you had 2 projects so far in the class. You received a 36 out of 40 on the first one. You forgot the second one when it was due. Your dog ate it the third time you had an opportunity to turn it in, and you think, just forget it. Steve's going to take points away for being late anyway. I will just save up all my efforts and get a perfect grade on the final one, which is incredibly hard to do, but let's say that you did it. So you got a 36, you took the 0, the 40, that equals 76 divided by 3 equals 25.3 out of 40. That in percentage terms is a 63%. That's a failing grade so far. So now let's go back and say that you decided to turn in the second project that your dog ate. You slopped it together. You only got 20 points out of 40 because you had to spend that extra time. You didn't get 40 out of 40, but you still got an A on the third project. So now you take your first grade of 36, instead of a 0, you got a 20 here, instead of a 40, you got a 36. That equals 92 divided by 3 equals a 30.7 out of 40, which is a high C grade, on track, to possibly move up into the B range. So much better result than what you saw in the example of getting a 0. And if you want to see how I got those numbers up, the percentages, basically anytime you get a grade out of a certain number, so let's say that you got a 35 out of 40, you just take 35 divided by 40, and that's going to give you the percentage grade. So 35 divided by 40 equals 87.5. You know that at 87.5 puts you right into the B range. And if not, I have those on the syllabus, what the percentages equate to a letter grade. Just in case I didn't leave any of this on the screen long enough for you to hit the pause button and you do want to read all of it, I am going to just scroll through all of this, give you plenty of time to hit the pause button, and then we will continue on in the next video talking about late assignments.